All right, looks like we're right at 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Just want to welcome everybody. Thank you guys for being here with us today. We are always excited when we get the chance to be with you all because you have so much insight to share with us as well as your colleagues. If you're just coming in, just please make sure that you go ahead and put your name and district in our chat box and respond to our opening questions. In just a second, I'm going to see if anybody wants to hop on the mic to kind of share with us your opening question, your response, whether you are encountering any challenges or if you have any highlights or tips that you want to share with the rest of us. Um, just to introduce myself, I am Kimberly Howard. If there's anybody new to the room, and I work with induction and mentoring mainly, but of course support districts with the DEP. Here with my colleagues, our leader, Lila Tolmansager. We have Faye Colley, Beverly Flythe, Dr. Julie Hartwell, Dr. Vicky Troffler, and Rodney Evans. I don't think I missed anyone. Hopefully everybody here is familiar with Teams, but if you're not, I'm sorry. I don't know if somebody was trying to share. If you are familiar with or not familiar with Teams, there are a couple of things that we want you to pay close attention to. One of them being the chat, because we will be using the chat feature throughout our time together. So just make sure you're able to find that chat box up at the top. And then also your mic, as well as your camera. We would love for you to be on camera with us today. And we will ask you at several times throughout our time together to jump on the mic. So please make sure that you know where that mic feature is. For me, it's at the top right of my screen. Right now, we would like for you to mute your microphones until there is a time for us to share. Okay. So I do see some people providing some tips in our box. Is there anybody that wants to hop on the mic and talk to us about something that is challenging you or something that you would like to share with another district, just to kind of share a tip as we are wrapping up our school year? We would love to hear from you, so feel free to jump on the mic. While you guys work up some nerve, I'll just share a couple things that I see. I do know that a challenge that we are seeing trending is time management, of course, just because there's so much happening at the end of the year. And it's a lot to make sure that you're wrapping up evaluations, that you're touching bases with principals in all your schools, making sure signatures are in. We realize that's a lot. So we know that there has to be a process in place to make sure that those things are taken care of. So if there's anybody who's found kind of a seamless process for making sure those things get done, we would love for you to share it with the rest of the group. Dr. Staggers shared with us that one of the challenges they faced was getting, their special areas evaluators taken care of, but she's found some success in that and getting her administrators trained. So certainly if you are looking for a resource, Dr. Staggers may be one for you, and getting all those special areas evaluators trained up and ready to go for the 21-22 school year. Let's see what else we have. There's a lot in the chat. Team, is there anything you wish to highlight from the chat that I may be missing? Because I know a lot of stuff has come up. Is there anything you want to highlight as a challenge or a tip that you saw? I see a good one from Chad. He has a tip for you guys. Even though he's new in this role, what he's learned so far is that you have to stay organized, ask questions, and lean on your colleagues, because it does take a village. And we are each other's village. You are as districts, and we're here for you as a village at the state. And we certainly want you to be able to come to us for support.
Kim, I think Cheryl was brave enough to raise her hand. Cheryl, feel free to hop on the mic if you're willing to share.
Thanks,
I
Lila.
was just Thank you. I was just going to say that, because we have been face to face most of the year, one of the challenges I've had is having teachers who've been out too many days within an evaluation cycle. So I'm really having to go back and look at the percentage of days present. I don't know if that's affecting anybody else.
Thanks for sharing, Cheryl. Is there anybody else that has been impacted by this? I know this is certainly something that we've probably seen this year more than normal. Okay. Well, if you do have something that you want to share, I would love for you to put that in the chat just as a response to Cheryl. I see some other people saying they have seen that. I see some people thanking people for some of these tips. So I just encourage you guys to just kind of scroll through the chat just to look for some of these things that your colleagues are sharing. I certainly see some tips being shared here. So just feel free to kind of scroll through and look at those things. But we are going to go ahead and move forward. All right. So we're just going to share with you our agenda for today. We're going to discuss some upcoming ADEPT changes. Specifically, we have some changes to the SCTS environment rubric and changes to the 21-22 ADEPT plan. We're going to share with you some reminders about ADEPT implementation, what you should look out for as the year nears its end. And then finally, we'll provide some updates on our simplified SLO and some additional reminders. If you have any questions throughout, just please feel free to type them in the chat box. If necessary, raise your hand. And then we'll also have some time at the end for any questions you have or feedback that you wish to share. All right, so you should be aware that the environment domain of the SCTS rubric is being updated for release in the 21-22 school year. These revisions reflect the importance of creating classrooms that are safe, supportive, rigorous, and inclusive learning environments for all of our students. The changes also support our teachers in more clearly understanding what it looks like to create a classroom where every student is empowered to be successful. So for the next few slides, we're going to look at an overview of these changes. All right, so you see here expectations, and the changes made to the expectations indicator emphasize teachers' intentional modeling, encouragement, and reinforcement to promote student learning and motivation, making sure that we are specific about what setting high expectations looks like. And you'll see those expectations highlighted here in red, those changes identified here in red. Okay, you can go ahead to the next one. So the engaging students and managing behavior indicator, which was formerly managing student behavior, it emphasizes that connection between engagement, choice, and student behavior. What we found from studies is that there's no disruption in learning when students are actively engaged in high quality instruction. So we really wanted to make sure that this rubric demonstrates what that high quality instruction looks like to maintain that engagement of all students. So environment, which is in the environment domain, emphasizes the physical setup, and it optimizes student learning through a positive and inclusive environment by encouraging students to take risks, interact and collaborate with other students, and it ensures that all students have access to appropriate resources, whether that's in the classroom with the teacher or virtually. So those are some of the things that you'll see highlighted in this environment indicator. And then finally, respectful culture emphasizes promoting a safe space for learning for all students. And you'll hear us say that a lot throughout this year. We really want to make sure that our classrooms are a safe space for students. That includes a respectful relationship between the teachers and students and an atmosphere of mutual respect amongst the students. Just really making sure that everyone is comfortable in that learning environment and it's a place where everybody can learn. Again, you'll see this rubric. It'll be for our use throughout the next school year and moving forward, and it really just focuses on teachers developing that cultural competency to make sure that we provide the classroom environments that students need to learn. So what does this mean for you? Well, it's important that teachers understand the implications of this revised rubric. You can help teachers create culturally responsive classrooms through professional learning opportunities. So as you're thinking about professional learning for the upcoming school year, we want you to consider training that focuses on the whole child, including positive behaviors, building cultural competency, and deepening student engagement and ownership. We also want to ensure that we support teachers in recognizing the interconnectivity of the rubric as they embed those key social and emotional learning competencies. In addition, educators are going to need support in understanding how to utilize those targeted strategies that facilitate inclusion and strengthen the classroom environment, particularly with those cultural competencies. So as you're thinking about what you can do to support teachers in transitioning to this new rubric, these are some of the things that we want you to consider as you're thinking about professional development for the upcoming school year. And to help with this rollout, our office is going to hold a teacher webinar. It'll be on May 26, 2021 at 4 p.m. So we just encourage you to share this date with your educators so that they can plan to be in attendance. We really look forward to answering their questions during this time. We are going to share a registration link with you closer to that webinar date so that you can share that with your teachers. And I am now going to turn it over to Dr. Hartwell, and she's going to walk us through some changes to our 21-22 ADEPT plan. Now, if you have any questions about anything I just shared, please feel free to post those in the chat.
Thank you, Kim. As Kim said, we're going to review the changes to the 2021-22 ADEPT plan for next school term. So the good news is the plan is a little more streamlined than last year, and there are not as many changes as we had last year, I guess, to share with you this year. So we're going to use this opportunity to draw your attention to certain sections that might that will decrease the likelihood that we'll have to kick your plan back to you for some revision. So let's go through what's in store for this year. On this next slide, Beverly's already got it displayed here. You'll see the table of contents from the ADEPT plan. And all of these sections should be really familiar to you. So first, I want to let you know you're going to get a Word copy of the ADEPT plan for those of you who want to begin the process of planning for next school year pretty soon. So before I go on, I just want to remind you that the ADEPT plan is due on June the 1st. Okay, it's due on June the 1st. So on or before June the 1st in SC Lead, we'd like for you guys to have, guys and girls, to have all of your data loaded in SC Lead for your ADEPT plan for next year. So as I said, here's the table of contents. So we've attempted to streamline the sections so that you actually have to spend less time filling it out. So there should be claps all around because you guys do such a good job in filling out the ADEPT plan, but we know you've got a lot going on. So we've attempted to streamline the process. So just like last year, you have some required sections, and they're very intuitive. They're the ones you have to report on. And you have, hello?
Please place yourself on mute.
Sorry?
I was requesting if somebody was not on mute to be on mute, because it looked like, Julie, somebody was over you when you were speaking.
Okay, thank you. So I'll back up just a second. So if you remember from last year, you had some required sections. Okay, you still do. And those are ones that are very intuitive because those are the ones we have to report and collect data on. Okay, and then you're going to have some sections that you can leave blank if you have no changes from what your district submitted last year. So most of the text in the sections is the same with one major change. We have merged the SLO, GBE, and diagnostic assistance sections into one, and that's section 4, and you'll see it in bold print on the screen. Also, we only have one addendum for you to complete this year, and we're going to look at the addendum in a minute. If you are new to your role as ADEPT lead and you have questions about the plan, once you start to fill it out, please contact your regional ADEPT contact who will walk you through and make sure you are okay and make sure you meet the deadline. But today we're going to hit the highlights. So we're going to stay on the screen for just a minute. So just want to review with you that section 1 is still required. We're going to look a little deeper into that one, look at some screenshots in that one in just a minute. That's where you're going to identify your scoring approach and the scoring instrument, how you're going to divide those up. Section 2 is district choice measure. Now you're only going to complete section 2 if your district is utilizing one of the available district choice measures next school year. So if your district is using some kind of value added measure to determine teacher evaluation results, you're going to fill in this page. If you have a question whether or not section 2 applies to you, please contact your regional ADEPT contact and they'll walk you through it. If it doesn't apply to you, you leave section 2 blank. Section 3, that's where you're going to describe the supports you offer for teachers that are on induction 1, 2, and 3 contracts. If nothing's changed from last year, You can indicate on that page, there'll be a little radio button in SC Lead or some kind of checkbox or something of that nature in SC Lead. You'll indicate that nothing's changed from last year or from whatever year you're referencing back to, like I said, within the last 2 or 3 years, and move on. In section 4, this is the merge section, and I'm going to share a screenshot of what that looks like in just a moment. Section 5, that's one of our required ones, right? We have to report that every year. We have to know what your timeline looks like in your district. So even if you're roughly keeping the same schedule as what you did last year, you still need to enter those dates into SC Lead. So your timeline is required. The timeline section 5 is required. Section 6, here's where you put whether you have charters or residential childcare facilities or career tech centers in your district. If none of that has changed, you can simply indicate that on the page in SC Lead and move on. Section 7 is the continuous improvement section, and here's where we want to know how ADEPT is progressing in your district. So this section is required. Section 7 is required. Appendix A, really it's no Appendix B, so it probably should say, addendum. Appendix A and B are just rehearsals of the requirements. And B contains resources. And then of course we have one addendum. We don't have a second addendum, so it probably should just be addendum instead of addendum A. But for the purpose of this addendum A, we hope this year is going to draw your focus toward equitable access to effective teachers. And what does the data, your district's data, say about how that's going in your district? Okay, so I'll walk you through that one in a moment. On the next slide, you'll see 2 screenshots from section 1. Section 1 has you identify information about your evaluation instrument and your scoring approach. So I'll draw your attention to this. Let's look at the top chart. At the top is the evaluation instrument chart. So if your district is using the SCTS model next year for classroom-based teachers and ADEPT 2020 for special areas, you'll check SCTS for classroom-based teachers and all the boxes under ADEPT 2020. So that's really the boxes in the first 2 columns. This should also be a gentle reminder to you that your district should be training your special area evaluators so that you're ready to start off the year with fidelity to the model in 21-22 in August. If you're following a locally developed model, and we have a couple of districts that are doing that, please be careful to mark the correct boxes for the instrument you intend to use for classroom-based teachers and special area educators. Some locally developed models will use their locally developed model for classroom-based teachers, but use the state model for special area educators. Just make sure you're very purposeful about how you mark the top box, because if you mark it incorrectly, the incorrect forms are going to pop up if you're using SC Lead to guide your process in your district. I also want to draw your attention to the bottom chart where you are asked to identify which scoring approach your district's going to use by contract level. So 2 reminders here. Reminder 1, if you're a consensus district and you select consensus for induction and continuing formative, even though they only have a minimum of 1 observation per semester, SC Lead and the process expects you to still have a consensus meeting and to enter that form into the system. So it's a little more intuitive if you have 2 observations. Of course you have to consent, but if you choose consensus for where you only have 1 observation, i.e. induction or continuing formative, you are still expected to have and to post that consensus meeting in SC Lead. So please be aware of that when you make your selection. Reminder 2, and it's not noted here necessarily on the chart because this particular chart is only for classroom-based teachers, but we want to remind you that special area evaluators, as we move forward to ADEPT 2020, that all special area evaluations are going to follow the consensus scoring model, regardless of what your district does. Okay, so all special area observations are going to follow the consensus scoring approach. All right, on the next slide, you'll see this new merged section for section 4. Here's where we've collapsed all of the requirements around GBE, SLO, and diagnostic assistance. So you'll notice that if nothing's changed across these, you'll check the box or the radio box at the top. If something has changed, just mark your selection. For SLO, and Mr. Evans is going to talk about SLO a little bit later, we want you all to make sure that you're reviewing the guidance regarding GBEs, and of course make your selection regarding diagnostic assistance if something has changed, okay? So just wanted you to see the merge section, but none of the meat and potatoes of it has changed. All right, let's go to the next slide. So here's the screenshot from section 5. And so oftentimes we have to kick back an adept plan because folks will fill out the left-hand column, the right-hand column where it says date, but they won't go into the left-hand column and fill in a response behind each of the question marks, right? So you can either do it right behind the questions or in the date column, but we need to know which one is aligned where. So you're going to be asked to report the number of teacher evaluators that are trained in SCTS, the number of teacher evaluators that are certified in SCTS currently, but you currently have certified. So as you read this chart, as you review this chart, this too is another reminder, a gentle reminder, but one nonetheless, that you should have someone certified to evaluate using the ADEPT 2020 model before June the 1st when you turn it in, so that you don't have to report a 0. If you don't have anybody certified yet to complete the ADEPT 2020 evaluations, go ahead and report 0, no worries. But we will be, of course, sharing some strategies with you and providing whatever support you need to make sure that you have folks ready to go in those roles come August. But the push should be on to get your evaluators certified in ADEPT 2020 now and certainly into the summer. So now let's look at the next slide where we're going to look at the addendum. So the addendum will require that you pull district data to answer the questions in the addendum. So I wanted to walk you through kind of what the process would be from beginning to end. So you're going to get the data that you need to answer the questions in the addendum from SC Lead, and you're going to do that by pulling reports. So where do you get reports from? I'm sure you're all saying in unison. You get that by clicking on districts and schools, which is the screenshot you see here. Scrolling down that left-hand menu, which is in red, and clicking on ADEPT under the reports option. Okay, and the one you need to address the questions in the addendum, the report that you need to address the questions in the addendum is the human capital report, the schools report. So make sure that you are pulling the schools report and not the district report, and you'll see that highlighted by the red arrow here. So now you know where to get the report. On the next slide, we're going to look at the questions that you're going to answer using the report. So one thing we hope to accomplish by this addendum, and I want you just to kind of review it as I talk a little bit, is that we hope this addendum will assist you in ensuring that all students in South Carolina have equitable access to highly effective teachers and leaders. In order to recruit and retain great teachers and leaders across all schools and all classrooms, we recognize the need to examine the data so we really know where the gaps are. Most of you have the answers to these questions intuitively, but it's important to know what the data says. You might find a few surprises. So we want to ensure that our reality drives the solutions we put in place by looking at the data. Would you agree or disagree that while some staffing strategies have become commonplace in our districts, these practices may have created a system where underperforming schools don't have the same access to high-flying effective teachers and leaders as high-performing schools? Your job is tough. A small district may have staffing challenges that a big district doesn't, and vice versa. But somehow, we've got to tackle how to ensure that all students in South Carolina get access to great teachers and leaders. You know, it makes me think about the healthcare system. In healthcare, if you have a patient that's really, really sick, the hospital calls in a specialist, right? You don't get a resident, no matter how talented they are. You get a doctor who's at the top of his or her game, someone who's done advanced studies in pulmonology or hematology and nephrology. It makes me think, do we have that same approach in schools when we decide how we're going to triage or staff struggling schools? So we hope that Addendum A will help you highlight any inequities that may exist that you didn't realize were there, or spark a solution or strategy to help all students have access to high quality teachers and leaders. So take a minute and skim these questions. Let's look at the next slide. On the next slide, here you see a sample report that you are going to pull, a sample human capital schools report. And I've changed the data here so that it would not reflect a district's individual situation. So let's walk through a couple of the questions just so you'll have a framework for what you're going to do in Addendum A. So the first question in Addendum A says, identify the schools with the lowest percentage of effective teachers. Put in the chat which schools, A, B, C, D, E, F, or G, have the lowest percentage of effective teachers. What am I getting? Can somebody tell me what responses we're getting?
A.
A. If you had to focus on two, right, it'd probably be A and B, right? So similar. Thanks, everybody. So then the follow-up questions, once you know what your district's data looks like, is what do you know about those schools? What do you know about schools A and possibly B, right? What do you know about these schools that allows this to be the situation where they have the lowest percentage of effective teachers? How are you supporting principals in those particular schools, right? So these are just some kindling, if you will, to start the process or to keep it going about how do we tackle this issue. Let's look at another question from Addendum A, or the addenda. Identify the schools with the largest percentage of induction teachers. So looking at the sample data, what would you say? The school or schools with the largest percentage of induction teachers. Can somebody place that in the chat for me? F and G, yeah. So then once you know what your district's data looks like, and in this case it's F and G, then you've got the follow-up question. What do you know about these schools that's allowing this to be the case? Why are all the induction teachers, why are a lot of the induction teachers being placed at those schools? What's there, what's in our system that's perpetuating that? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing, right? So we want you to grapple with this data, right, as you complete Addendum A. So this may require input from others in your district, but we ask that you take a deep dive into your human capital report. And let's talk about what's happening. What does the data say? What's happening? What's keeping these practices? What can we do to fix? What are the steps, be they big or small, that can ensure that all South Carolina students have access to highly effective teachers and leaders? No one has all the answers right now, but we hope that this addendum can begin or keep the search for solutions going. So we look forward to your comments. We look forward to reading your ADEPT plan addendum. So any questions that you have about addendum A or the overall, please reach out to your district ADEPT contact and we'll get you through it. All right. Thank y'all for working with me through that. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Beverly Flay. Beverly?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to go over the ADEPT implementation and SC Lead reminders. The auto completion feature for GBE evaluations will begin on May 1st. What does this feature do? It completes all eligible open evaluations for the current academic year for classroom-based teachers, school counselors, school librarians, and speech-language professionals who are on a GBE evaluation with a continuing contract. It sets the overall status and/or the recommendations for the evaluations as continuing GBE, met, and rehired if you haven't already set them to something else, or even to that. When will auto completion start? This will begin on Friday, May the 1st, and it will complete every Friday until June 20th. Why is this feature important? It allows ADEPT coordinators, that's you, to focus on educators who are not met and may not be rehired the next school year. What about educators without SLO scores? Classroom-based teacher evaluations missing a student learning objective, rating, or score will not be updated or closed using the automatic completion feature. What should I note when reviewing the Evaluations tab bubbles in SC Lead? When reviewing the Evaluations tab, remember that the bubbles can help you see progress at a glance. First, note that skipping the SLO will fill the bubbles as shown in the first screenshot. The Educator Student Growth Status bar inside the evaluation will also show 100%. Don't be alarmed if you see a no in the SLO report, as long as you know that this educator has skipped their SLO. For districts using the ADEPT flexibility for doing walkthroughs and preliminary cycle, note that the walkthrough will not fill the observation bubble. The educator's observation status bar inside their evaluation for the preliminary cycle will fill at 100%. Next, note that with the continuing formative evaluations for educators with a preliminary observation entered that rated proficient or higher for each indicator, the observation bubble gets filled. Within that educator's evaluation, the final cycle observation status bar will show 100% even without entering a spring observation to reflect the 2021 flexibility. Lastly, when you find educators with no bubbles filled at all, check to see what the situation may be. Are they truly being evaluated? In such case, they need to sign orientations and have evaluation progress entered. Are they accidentally created evaluation records for educators that are either no longer in your district or aren't supposed to be going through evaluation? In that case, make sure to remove the evaluation record and locate the educator in your school staff list. Edit staff details to no role and not evaluated. Just a few special areas evaluation reminders. All special areas managers must attend the special areas train the trainer training before being able to be granted rights in Moodle. The next scheduled date for this training is May 7th. SAMs who should assign evaluators to the Moodle evaluator training as soon as possible to allow them adequate time to complete the modules prior to school year 21-22. Our office will present finalized guidelines, rubrics, and cut scores for met and not met at the June State Board meeting. Full implementation takes place 2021-2022. And now I think I hand it over to my friend, Rodney Evans.
That is correct. Thank you so much, Beverly. All right, we'll now look at the simplified SLO updates. So we've gotten feedback from district leaders, school leaders, and teachers on the simplified SLO process that was introduced on this school year. And after receiving feedback from the field, we've decided to continue with the simplified SLO for the 2021-22 school year. This next section will go over changes to the simplified SLO and where we are in the process currently. All right. So we will continue, like I mentioned, with the Simplified SLO for next school year. And there are a few changes to the template that will be visible on the next slide. We're currently waiting on board approval for the new template. And our current business rules will still apply. So teachers will need to have a minimum of 6 students in order to complete an SLO. District and school level SLO trainings will be offered this summer, and we will begin to release those dates here shortly. And we will, of course, be able to give you insight on the Simplified SLO and the changes that we're going to make. Also, online SLO teacher self-paced training will reflect the Simplified SLO process. And if you are in need of that self-paced training, I believe in March 21st, the platform that we were using, we no longer have that access to that platform anymore. So if you do need a copy of the online SLO self-paced teacher training, please email me, revans@ed.se.gov, and I can send you a copy of that PowerPoint. Also, districts will still have the option to use a district generated SLO form or an SLO rubric, generated by your district, but it has to be approved as part of your district ADEPT plan. All right. So again, we've made some revisions to the Simplified SLO template, and mainly in the sections 3 and the added section 4. Section 3 and the template that was used on this year in the Simplified template was called Instructional Strategies. Well, now this section will be called Instructional Strategies and Inclusive Learning Environment. So within that section, we've added section C, as well as D, as shown on the screen. And these additions to section 3 tie to our statewide focus on inclusive learning, as the goal is for teachers to ensure that practices are inclusive and culturally responsive throughout the SLO process. We've also added section 4 for the mid-course conference to allow for reflection at the midpoint of the SLO interval. The mid-course conference will still be able to be incorporated into school level and grade level meetings. All right, so these are the changes that we're looking at for 2021-22, as we are waiting on state board to approve these changes. I'll now call Lila to talk about some other potential SLO changes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rodney. I appreciate it. And I just want to shout out, as always, I want to shout out the team. Thank you to all the Ed Associates in the effectiveness side. They listen so hard to you and they bring your issues to us. So Daniel and Aaron, we hear you. I think we did have the same conversation about autocomplete last year. So we'll talk about it and we'll definitely let you know about it. In that same vein, we have been gathering feedback. We gather feedback from y'all. We try to also gather feedback from teacher groups before we make any changes to teacher evaluation. And y'all well know that the reason the SLO is there is to add some teeth to what's required in the statute and regulation in terms of every educator in South Carolina is supposed to have a professional growth and development plan that's updated every year. They're supposed to be evaluated continuously. We have been hearing, and for years now, but more recently, teachers have been incredibly honest with us that the SLO feels like a disincentive for taking on leadership opportunities, like being a mentor or pursuing national board. And I feel like when we heard this before, we thought it might just be complaining, but it hit us differently this year as teachers and teacher leaders were talking about that to us. And from our perspective, if a district is trusting a teacher to go for national board certification or to grow other teachers as a mentor, as a coach for in-service teachers, as a coach for pre-service teachers, then it's usually a pretty good indicator that they know how to reflect on their students' growth and they know how to grow their students. So our question that we want to pose to you is, we're considering allowing teachers to instead of the SLO, do a professional growth and development goal that's specifically around their teacher leadership. So that would look like either developing their expertise through a process like National Board, and then sitting down and having those conferences about their progress with their, normal SLO evaluator, or setting a goal around how they're growing the teachers that they're mentoring, how they are growing the teachers that they're coaching, how they're serving in a hybrid leadership role, and then still have those same conferences. Our question to you is, would you take advantage of that flexibility? Do you think that's a good idea? We never want to undercut how you use SLOs, but we would love just some feedback either on the chat or on the mic. But we really hear from teachers. If you want to incentivize us to do things like National Board, give us a carrot. And this is one carrot, even in, a unstable funding environment where we don't know if they'll get those incentives back in the budget, that we could nod towards something we know is evidence-based.
Hi, Lila. This is Anita Parker. I can speak faster than I can type. So
Yes, ma'am.
just unmuted myself. I personally think that's a great idea. And I think you already have the stuff in place to do that and to capture it, probably. Because to me, it means to sit down seriously with an administrator and write a strong GBE. You already have the stuff that you need in SC Lead for folks to design. I think maybe there needs to be, I don't know, maybe a few more opportunities for them to describe what they need, what they want to focus on. But I think you pretty much have something there that can capture that. It just means that administrators need to do what we've been trying to get them to do for probably over 10 years, right, Larry? To write strong, meaningful GBEs. It's already there. I like that idea.
Thank you very much for articulating it that way. And that's the way we see it too. Instead of your professional growth and development goal being an SLO, it will instead be a GBE goal.
Right.
Well, if y'all have more ideas about that, we certainly, I may be putting the cart before the horse, because we just got some good teacher feedback last night. I wanted to get y'all's feedback, and then we'll take it certainly to senior staff here. But it's something, if they are comfortable with it, we've only gotten positive feedback on it. And we know that you are struggling with recruiting mentors, for example, Adrian, and we want to give you as many options as possible to try to incentivize that. And to exactly, Larry, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We would certainly put some business rules in place so that you would have flexibility to guide your principals to do things like say no. Just because a teacher wants to set a leadership goal instead of an SLO, it may be that evaluator wants to say, I really think that we need you to set a student growth goal this year. You're teaching a new course, or we saw some trends in your data last year. So certainly it would be an option, but not a requirement. Teachers wouldn't automatically get to do it if they wanted to. On the next slide, did want to share with you a mistake that I made in last month's office hours. We got the question, do both trainers and evaluators need to recertify for when their credential runs out? And I was thinking from the SC Lead angle, like, SC Lead is not going to stop your trainers from being able to see their adept roles. But we did review our guidelines, because we are taking those to the board, and notice that our guidelines do say that if you are training people to be evaluators with the South Carolina Teaching Standards, or you are evaluating with the South Carolina Teaching Standards, you do need to do that recertification test. So we'd encourage you, make some time to do it. It will only take you about an hour and a half. If you don't pass, you get another shot at it. And NIET is also happy to coach you. I don't think any of y'all need to go through retraining. If you don't pass, just give a call to your ed associate, give a call to NIET, and we'll get y'all set up for that retest. On the next slide, we do want to share with you just a couple of virtual training opportunities that are coming up from the Center for Teaching Quality. So Faye is going to put those into the chat for us. CTQ has been a great partner for us in terms of teacher leadership and micro-credentials. And so they are putting out a lot of free offerings right now that have been really helpful. The other opportunity I'll just put out there, I'll shout out Cheryl Sniker and Donna Crocker are both here and are both participating in our Micro-Credential Academy. We are taking a lot of teacher leaders and district leaders through that process of doing micro-credentials. So if you're interested in how to set that up in your district, we will have a presentation at the SCASA I3 conference, but we're also planning to just do a quick webinar for districts, probably sometime later in the summer. So if you're interested in that, definitely let me know, let Rodney know, and we're happy to help you out with that. Finally, on our last slide, I'm going to hand the mic back to our facilitator, Dr. Howard, and we're happy to take any other questions that you have.
All right, thanks, Lila. So like Lila said, we're just here to hear your questions at this time, or if there's any feedback you wish to share based on anything you've heard today, now's our time to hear from you. So just feel free to raise your hand, hop on the mic, or you can continue to use the chat feature if necessary.
Dr. Howard, I did promise that we'll give Daisha the opportunity to speak. She had her hand raised, and I may have missed if she wrote in the chat earlier, but Daisha, please take the floor.
Thanks, Faye.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, this question may have been answered, but I was looking at Addendum A and I wanted to know what data, how did you determine the effective versus not effective teachers, the percentages there? Is that based on their passage of the SLO or evaluation?
So it is based on their depth evaluation for the year. So those teachers who are at the annual or continuing level, if they are met, they are considered effective. Those not met would be ineffective. Also, those teachers who are on induction contracts, if they have 2 years of not met, then they would be considered ineffective on that report.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions? Faye, was there anything in the chat that you think we need to share with the group?
I did want to mention that earlier Danny had his hand up, but I wasn't sure if he was able to get all his questions out in the chat. Danny?
We're good, Faye. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Daniel.
There's a question that Angie just posted, if there's been any thought given to increasing the MET score.
Faye, if you're comfortable, I'm happy to jump in on that one. We have been reviewing the data because we've been looking at the special areas cut scores and trying to think about what should those be going forward. We think that we are seeing it's a very small band for unsatisfactory, and it's a very small band for exemplary. It's nearly impossible to score an average of 4. We think both of those probably need to be addressed. So our plan next year is to have an advisory group that helps review the data with us, to work together with some data analysts that can help us look a little bit about, what the impact would be of shifting maybe a 1/4 point down for exemplary and a 1/4 point up for unsatisfactory to be that dividing line. If any of you are passionate about that work and want to come through the data with us, please let me know, and we'll make sure when we open up nominations for that advisory group that we include you. We also probably will give you a call if we're considering that and say, hey, for the past couple years, here are some educators in your district that would have been not met. Do you think that's actually better? Or do you think that's a bad change? Because you will have, we can look at the numbers and see percentages of people, but you will know those actual teachers and know if actually that would have been a better thing for you. I'll also just drop, it's not 100%, and please don't release it to anyone else, but I did have to share the inclusive strategies with a teacher group last night, so I can show you the 75% their version. Just know that we'll be releasing an official version.
Thanks, Lila. We also have Cheryl Sniker. Her hand is up. Cheryl?
I just had a question. You were in the conversation about the alternatives for SLOs as far as national board, those sorts of things. If any of that is going to be changed or offered as an opportunity, what might be the timeline on that? Just so I would kind of know what to do with administrators this summer in training.
Absolutely. So we take it to the board in May, and would, as soon as we get that confirmation, send all of those materials out to HR leads and effectiveness leads. We will have some SLO trainings this summer that will incorporate any changes that are made to the SLO.
All right, thank you.
June 1st will be the date adept plans are due. Any other questions? Were there any hands that we missed?
We're good with the hands. Dr. Howard, I think we got Cheryl already, and just a few comments from the others. Larry was, I think, asking if anybody needed a retiree on the evaluation committee. So just a side comment on that. It looks like he's volunteering. And then Danny mentioned earlier that he would like to be considered for the study data group. But I don't think I missed anything. But if I missed anything in the chat that we did not get to respond, please hop on the mic so we can address your question.
Well, what's an advisory group without either Larry or Daniel?
Yeah, we got a lot of strong, very talented people we can pull from. Lots of strong, talented people. Thanks everybody for volunteering for that.
If you guys don't have any other questions or anything else you wish to share, we'll go ahead and allow you to head out, but just know that we will continue to stick around. We'll be here for the next 8 minutes for anything additional you have. If you want to wait for a few people to get off the line and ask your question, then we'll be here until 3 o'clock. But as far as everything we wish to share with you today, that does bring us to a conclusion. So for those of you heading out, thank you again for being with us. We hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and we will talk to you soon.
Hey guys, this is Anita again, and I just they just swapped my laptop out today and everything. So every time they do that, you gotta fix things on your computer. So when the meeting first started, I wasn't getting any sound, and I had to call our tech person. So I missed information about the environment changes. My main question, I think, is will there so we'll have a new rubric that we need to make sure we're using, or what?
So yes, so the environment domain of the rubric has been updated, so that is going to be implemented fully next year. And it's really just kind of giving us specifics about what those things would look like in a culturally responsive classroom. If you would like, I could send you the red line of what those changes we are proposing. So you can get an idea of what that looks like as you begin to kind of plan for teachers next year and rolling that out.
Okay, thank you. That would be helpful, Kim.
Okay.
This is Cheryl Warren. Will the new rubric be available when the in-service is given? I think it's on May the 26th. If we wanted to print it out for our teachers or the principals print it out for their staffs.
I'm not sure if May 26th, if it'll be available. Lily, you have any feedback on that? I know we have to get some.
NIET has sent it to us, Dr. Warren, and unless there's someone on the board that I have never experienced them going rogue and being like, you need to change this indicator, we can go ahead and send it to you, and then we will probably not post it on our website until after the board meeting.
That sounds good. And if you want to, you can put draft on it. That would work too. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. We're glad you're already thinking ahead to your in-service. You're ready to roll.
I'm going to inform my principals right now to save that time.
I see you made it, Mr. Z.
Yes, I did. Thank you. As always, you guys were great. A lot of great information.
Thank you.
Cheryl, did you have something else you wanted to share? We can see your hand up.
Which Cheryl is that? My hand was up.
No, ma'am. Cheryl Sniker. I should have specified.
No, Lil, I'm sorry. It doesn't show that it's still raised on my screen. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. It could be a ghost inside of Microsoft Teams. No worries.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, Mr. Z.
Bye-bye.
We love seeing you, Dr. Z.
Same here. Take care.
Lila and Kimberly, this is Julie Woodhouse. How are y'all doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I have a question, but I'm just going to send it to you in email because it's really not involved with the things that you talked about today. Is that okay?
Yes, or you can ask if you
don't mind.
Want to get it out now.
Okay.
Don't mind.
So I probably have missed this and I apologize. Our induction and annual formative teachers in SC Lead, are their orientations at the beginning of the year still supposed to be coded? Like indicated what their dates are, as well as their mentor assignment?
Yes, so that should be the case for all teachers, yes.
Okay. And can you tell me where the tutorial manual is for that so I can get that done?
For orientation, I could send you a link to the guide.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay. All right.
Is there a way to import those in mass numbers, or does it have to be individually done?
There is a bulk import for orientations. I believe we have a guide for that. I can't remember. We have so many guides, but I'm thinking we do. I'm looking now.
Okay. I have 450.
Okay. So that's the individual one.
Is it part of that stuff we send with induction count? I feel like that's one of the things we sometimes send. Like if you're an import person and you need to get ready for induction count?
Not with the orientations, though. I don't think we send anything for bulk uploading orientations.
Oh, okay.
There's a video, Kim, that Faye
There's
did.
okay.
Faye, didn't you? I mean, I have the video open now, and it's talking about how to set up the orientations. The bulk tools video MP4 that Faye created is like 30 minutes long, but there's a section around 357 where it starts talking about creating those orientations.
Rodney, could you forward that to Julie?
To Julie
Woodhouse?
Julie,
Are you
Rodney, if you send it to me, I can forward it to her. I
Okay.
have her email address saved.
okay, so
You can drop it in the chat too if it's a link.
is she here? Is she?
I'm still here.
Okay, all righty, all right. I can drop the link here. Let's.
Thank you, Rodney.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm gonna give you that timestamp again where it starts to talk. Well, it's just at the beginning of the video. Hold on. I have it stopped here around 357. I see where it starts to talk about why create orientations. It could be before that, but definitely around there.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, so we are at 3:01, so I think that'll wrap us up. Again, thank you all for joining us, and we hope you have a great afternoon.